So lately I've been seeing more and more discussion crop up about the level of Avernus. A lot of people saying the level shouldn't be rated, a lot of people saying the level should receive a nerf date, and mostly just discussion about the fact that the level still does not have any victors on pointer crate. To give you an idea of just how little people are actually playing this level, if you go to the in-game leaderboards for Geometry Dash on the level of Avernus, you can see that the records are one singular 100% from Zoink, who was the verifier, and then immediately after, all you get is a 19% from Clune, and then two 5%, two 4%, a 3%, couple 2%, wow, a lot of 2%, and then a bunch of 1%. People are not playing this level. Because of this discourse, a lot of people are asking the question of, why is Avernus so hated? People who are out of the loop and don't know much about the editor and don't know much about the contents of the level itself are asking the very valid question of, why is this level hated? It doesn't look that bad. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly why this level is controversial. So first of all, we have to talk about the gameplay, and I want to reiterate here, I am not good enough to play levels like this, so I have no way of knowing what is and isn't fun in these levels, so most of this is going to be reiterating what other top players have said, but considering the opinion is universal across the entire player base, I'm going to assume that it's not just biased opinion. Avernus as a level is very difficult, but not in a way that's natural or a way that makes sense. Like, it's not difficult in the same way something like Limbo is difficult. The reason this level's so difficult is because what it essentially is imagine taking a top 30 and super buffing it to top 1 by filling it with fixed hitboxes. That's essentially what Avernus is. The level is filled to the brim with really bad fixed hitboxes, really bad artificial buffs that just make the level way less fun to play. Really quick, I'm just gonna demonstrate what fixed hitboxes actually are for people in the audience who don't know, because there are still a large amount of people who don't know. Basically, let's set up a typical straight fly. So we're gonna place some spikes like this, and we're gonna just have them here. Now, what you might not know about setups like this is this looks excruciatingly difficult until you realize that the hitboxes are actually kind of funny, and so you can do something like this, and despite all the little movements, I would have only died about once or twice. Like, let's just set up a quick little run where I don't die. See, I survived that despite literally dipping down. Right? So what a fixed hitbox is making them invisible. What you essentially do is you create accurate spike hitboxes with invisible objects. So we would put a spike here, make that invisible, and then we're gonna put a spike here and make that invisible. So now, with this straight fly section that I was able to do in roughly 2 attempts, you can see now that I died significantly more, when before this exact setup I would have probably only died right here. And so, you can see me attempting this, I can't make it through. Earlier I did this in roughly 1 attempt or so. I can't even get into it. It makes things way more difficult in a very unnatural and artificial way, and that is what fixed hitboxes are. And you might be expecting there to be more to say than that, but in reality, it does just come down to the fact that the level is really unfun due to the nature of how its buffs were handled. I can pretty much summarize this level in the first click alone. See, this part looks like a traditional ship sweep where you just start holding at a specific time to get past the spikes, but because the fixed hitboxes are there, it feels more like a really awkward straight fly that's difficult to transition into. And the whole level feels like this. There's also a really high frame perfect count, like to an unnecessary degree. Like, if I'm not mistaken, one of the waves in this level, I'm not sure which one, but one of the waves in this level has like 30 frame perfects in a row, which is really excessive. To put it into perspective, one of the previous top ones, Slaughterhouse, had a wave section that became very infamous known as River's Part. The reason it was infamous was because of its frame perfect count. Do you want to know how many frame perfects are in River's Part? 7. If an entire section in a former top 1 can be controversial because of 7 frame perfects, imagine what 30 of them would do. That's Avernus. The decoration in Avernus is very, very passable. It's not the best, but it's okay. It could be a lot worse. The problem with the deco is a lot of people think it's way better than it is, which wouldn't normally be a problem because I don't like to just shit on other people's opinions. If you like the look of Avernus, that's fine. Where I have an issue is people use the decoration in Avernus to justify the level having a rate. And this is a problem because the decoration in Avernus is not that hard to make at all. Avernus's deco looks really good at first glance, especially if you don't have a grasp of the editor. However, if you do have a grasp of the editor, a lot of Avernus is very easy to make using a mix of YouTube tutorials and very basic connected texture blocks. A lot of the blocks in Avernus can be very easily recreated with simple connected texture blocks. For example, in this part you have these structures right here, and these can quite literally be created by just placing these down like this, and then adding these over them. And there you go. I may not have the colors right, but that's just simply because I haven't set up the colors at all. But this is how the blocks in Avernus are created. There are several more examples of this. Now, that's not to say the entirety of Avernus looks bad. There are parts that I think look genuinely good, like this part that you're seeing on screen, but that's kind of part of the issue. Oftentimes in situations, you'll have a level where one part looks amazing, and the entire rest of the level looks like garbage, and in these cases, the level usually does not get rated. Detroit Circles by Wavix, for example, this level has parts that look genuinely amazing, but the reason this level hasn't been rated, according to certain GD moderators, is this dark part right here. And I kinda get why. The block textures don't even align properly. And so we go back to Avernus, in which we have parts that look genuinely alright, like this part, and then you have this part, which just uses generic 1.0 textures with some glow slapped over them, which is really, really gross. The level also just makes some really odd choices. Like, why is the Pillsbury Doughboy at the end of the level? Why is he there? Why? What the hell is he doing there? And like I said, a lot of this can be made by simply going on YouTube and searching how to make realistic AP Team style lava. You'll end up finding guides that tell you exactly how to make this lava. If it tells you how common it is, I've literally seen it in places like the Wavix house. All of this is not necessarily to say that the decoration is bad, it's to say that the decoration is subpar. It's not good enough to justify a rate given the circumstances of the gameplay. A lot of why this level is controversial is because of Pocky Windfish. Now, if you don't know Pocky Windfish, they're the creator and host of Avernus. And that's all we really know about them. Well, that and the fact that they're kind of a dick. Yeah, see, if you go into Pocky Windfish's comment sections of their Avernus showcases and stuff like that, this stuff has actually been scrubbed clean from the internet and removed. Like, I've looked for it, and it's not there anymore. But for a while, if you went into the comment section, it would just be filled with Pocky Windfish threatening to eat people's organs and stuff like that, and, like, calling people worms if they didn't like the level, and just stuff like that. Genuine immature behavior. Mix this with the fact that they would commonly boast that the level was top 1 and harder than Acheron, and whenever people said it's not harder than Acheron, they would get made fun of, and just in general stuff like this, and people quickly grew to not like Pocky Windfish. It's ironic because it's coming out very recently thanks to Iced Cave making a public post that Pocky Windfish is most likely a Kairos alt, and I kinda believe this considering on the end screen the only two people credited are Kairos and Bo. If Pocky Windfish was the host, they'd probably put their name in the level, and Pocky Windfish being Kairos makes a lot more sense. So you might be wondering why this matters. Well, it's because Kairos made an alt account specifically to evade criticism, and then decided to be a dick on said alt account and insist that their level's top 1. The fact that this level was basically left to die and that Kairos just didn't give a shit about it, yet he still forced it to be a minimum of top 2 on the list is just awful. If you really didn't care about this level, you should have nerfed it to the point where it's not annoying to play. Because I'm gonna go on a whim and say that Avernus would not be hated nearly as much if it was like 140 on the list, or something stupidly low like that. Here's the thing, when I think of the Demons list, I can think of significantly worse levels than Avernus, especially considering his deco isn't necessarily that bad. I can think of way worse levels on the Demons list, stuff like Art of the Blade or Akashic Records. And so this level could have been fine if you just nerfed it. Even if people hated it as much as they do now, they wouldn't need to care about it as much because it would be in the center of the Demons list and no one would have a reason to talk about it. And if you don't believe this claim, let me put it into this perspective. Imagine a level like Mirrored Calamity being buffed artificially with a bunch of fixed hitboxes to the point where it's in the top 2. I think people would be pretty angry at Mirrored Calamity. The fact that Kairos wanted to avoid backlash so bad that they made an alt account shows how bad this level actually is. And to make matters worse, I've been seeing the opinion from top players float around that Avernus might actually be harder than Acheron and that we just don't understand that because nobody's playing the level. But if more records come in, there's a genuine chance that Avernus and Acheron could swap, and we'll have Avernus as our top 1. Making things even worse, and this is the final nail in the coffin for why Avernus is so hated, Avernus was released under the guise of being a sequel to the Golden. Now, I'm gonna recommend Wavix's video on why Avernus doesn't work as a sequel to the Golden, as I feel like he explains things way better than I can here. But all you really need to know is that Avernus would make a horrible sequel to the Golden. It's not faithful to the level at all, it completely changes theme, the gameplay is just god-awful, which is kinda bad when the Golden had good gameplay. In general, there's a lot of reasons why this pissed people off. And while I personally don't care if Avernus is framed as a sequel to the Golden, it's not a good sequel to the Golden. So yeah, when the level first dropped, people were angry because it was supposed to be a sequel to the Golden and they felt it wasn't a very good sequel. It got the level a ton of initial criticism before it was even verified. Hockey Windfish starts to backpedal a bit. He changes it to say it's an antagonist level, meaning it's supposed to be like an opposite to the Golden. And now, he says that the level's not a sequel to the Golden at all. And you might be thinking, oh, so it's not a sequel, so people got what they wanted. Why are they complaining? Well, for the very valid reason of Hockey Windfish starts trying to gaslight people by saying it was never a sequel to the Golden, and he starts attacking people who call it a sequel. He labeled Wavix, Nero, and FNMO4 as worms. All because they labeled it as a sequel to the Golden. It just kinda rubbed people the wrong way. Like, how can you get mad at people for calling the level a sequel to the Golden when the level was literally presented as a sequel to the Golden? So what we have here is a really, really bad potential top 1, currently top 2, with really, really awful gameplay, decoration that, while being okay, does not justify the gameplay or the level having a rate, and on top of all of that, the host of the level is an immature child that also happens to be using an alt account to avoid backlash. You can see why this level is not very liked. Does that mean Avernus is a complete lost cause? Kind of. However, it can still be improved because if you just nerf the level, it'll go from hated to just forgotten, which at this point is probably the best bet you can get with this level. If you want my personal opinion, this level should have never gotten rated. Not only is the deco just mid at best, but the gameplay is horrible. In my personal opinion, creators should start focusing on making fun gameplay and good decoration, rather than making absurdly stupid top 1s. Because look at Cosmos. Cosmos was unplayable in its unnerfed state, but they chose to nerf it and make it fun. I guarantee you if Cosmos was left as, like, a potential top 1, the level would have gotten a ton of hate. It just saddens me to see this wasted potential, because with levels like Avernus, they'd be fine if they weren't forced to be this difficult, and I really think creators need to stop doing this. So that's the Avernus controversy explained. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe, and maybe comment your thoughts on the level. I am curious what you have to say. That being said, I do want to clarify that this is just a Square game at the end of the day, so please do not harass anybody over what is essentially just a bad level in a $4 video game. Harassment is not warranted for any of this. I just wanted to make this video to give my thoughts and explain the controversy. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.